to Every Day is a New Day.
Kim O'Neill from KimO'NeillCoaching.com.
We are live. Hello and welcome to another episode of Every Day is a New Day, where I have inspiring conversations with amazing guests about moving forward and choosing to embrace a positive outlook. I'm your host, Kim O'Neill, and I'm also a personal empowerment and interview confidence coach. And if you're watching us live, then hello. You have found us on Facebook at Kim O'Neill Coaching or on one of the many pages this has been shared out to. Or if you're watching the replay, that means you've either found us in addition to Facebook on YouTube or possibly on bingenetworks.tv on the Every Day is a New Day channel. Either way, wherever you're watching us, hello. We're so happy to have you here. Please do like, comment, share. Sharing not only helps me and the show and my guests, but also all those people who are going to benefit from hearing today's conversation. So we always welcome all your likes, comments, and shares, and love to interact with you during and after the show as well. With that said, I'm happy to introduce you to today's guest, Jennifer Spor. Welcome, Jennifer.
Hi. So excited to be here.
I am too.
Yay.
Okay, so just for formality's sake, I'm going to go ahead and read our viewers your bio, just so they can get a little bit of information about you. And then, of course, we're going to get into the flow of it. So to introduce to you Jennifer Spor, she is an intuitive transformational coach and spiritual mentor. She helps women get unstuck, connect with their unique gifts and talents, and find their purpose. Such important work. She has over 23 years of experience in leadership and mentoring, and Jennifer is also a certified law of attraction coach and a Holy Fire 2 Reiki practitioner. And that is just Jennifer in a nutshell. She did a great job at having a very concise bio. I love it. So, how are you doing today, Jennifer?
I'm doing so awesome. How are you?
I'm good. I love that response. So awesome. I love it.
Yeah. High vibe.
High five. What makes today so awesome for you?
I'm excited to be here with you. And I just got some more news today that another one of my clients is having a breakthrough, and it just makes me really happy because it seems like that's been happening with a lot of people the last week or two. So something must be, in the energy or the air, or I don't know, but I've just had a really exciting, great day, and now I get to end it here, and it's awesome.
Congratulations. That is I love hearing stuff like that when people report back to you, right? And they say, Kim,
yes,
this is right. So good job. That's awesome.
Yes.
Okay. So one of the questions I ask most of my guests, and answers tend to be pretty similar, but I love to just see if anything different shows up. What does every day is a new day mean to you? What comes to mind when you think of that phrase?
That every day is an opportunity to start fresh, to kind of, hit the reset button. And also it means possibility to me, expansion. Yeah.
I love that. I love it. Yes. Expansion. Okay. I love it. Your answer is just a tad different from other people. So I love that. So, okay, tell us about a time in your life. This show is about moving forward and, acknowledging, what we've learned as, maybe we hit a road bump in life. We all do at some point, right? And it was a challenging time, but we learned from it and we grew and we moved forward. Would you share with us a time in your life that that mirrors that and what you learned from that situation?
A time that I grew forward. Let's see. There's so many to choose from.
Anything at all that comes to mind?
Yeah. I mean, probably one of the biggest ones was when I was no longer feeling fulfilled in my career, my prior career.
Okay.
Learning that I essentially couldn't fit a square peg into a round hole anymore, and there were lots of lessons learned around that, lots of lessons around courage. Yep. To pursue a path that was unknown, and also lots of lessons around staying too long where I was at, ignoring, my soul's call to change.
Yeah.
So the saying, there's trouble in paradise, right? Like, I loved that job for a long time, but then eventually I just wasn't feeling challenged anymore, right? And I knew that. But I chose to ignore that for another year or two. And essentially,
I feel like you're in my life. Like, you're telling my story, but it's through your mouth. Okay. Yeah. Keep going. I love it.
Yeah. And so essentially, I ignored that out of fear, right? Because the typical questions that come up around, well, I've built this life, I've built this career, what will I do financially? What will other people think about the changes that I want to make? And at that time, I was also getting more and more focused on my life path spiritually, right? Okay. And so there was also a fear of being seen there. And so I ignored that call, and it got to the point where essentially the pain of where I was at, it exceeded the fear of leaving. And so that was a huge lesson for me. And basically the learning is that, change is going to happen, and it's best to surrender to it versus trying to continue to resist it and push it away.
Okay. I love what you said earlier about, trying to put a square peg in a round hole. That's a metaphor, right? Metaphor analogy. That's a metaphor I tend to use as well. Would you be open to sharing a little bit more about what that specifically looked like for you?
Yeah. So essentially I had changed as a person. I wasn't the same person anymore. The last company that I was with, I had been there for over 16 years. Okay. And so over time, what I used to love doing, I just didn't love anymore. I felt like I wasn't making a difference anymore. And that was something that for me, my entire life, professional life, it was important to me to always have a job and to always do something that I really believed I was making a difference. And so that was really the turning point. And I continued to resist that. And I just kept trying to fit. I was a different person. I just kept trying to fit the new version of who I was into an old paradigm, an old life, an old environment. And over time, I just couldn't do it anymore.
Okay. Yeah. Gosh, I really feel like if she's speaking to you, if you're with us live today and she's speaking to you, please do go ahead and share, because you are so not alone. I can totally identify with that. So I'm curious, in your professional life, to what degree did you share with your coworkers that, hey, there's something going on with you and you're feeling pulled in a different direction, or just even share this maybe more spiritual side of yourself? Did you do any of that, or what was that experience like for you?
I didn't share it with anyone initially. And when I say anyone, I mean anyone in my professional life and most of the people in my personal life. It was almost like I was living two different lives for a while. And like I said, I had felt like I needed to make a change, a career change, or, whatever that, I wasn't sure quite what that meant at the time. Okay. But I continued to ignore that. And I didn't say anything to anybody until, my mom got sick a few years ago. She was diagnosed with cancer and it was terminal. And that was really the catalyst for me pushing myself to move forward, because what was happening is that in my job, I was on 24/7 and had a high stress job, and I was working all the time, but I was flying back and forth to be with her. And there was a really defining moment for me in terms of I was trying to spend, what little quality time I had left with her, but I was still dealing with conference calls and projects and other stuff from work. And at that moment, I really said to myself, you know what, this is it. I'm done. Like, I don't have to be in a life I don't want to be in anymore. So that was when I changed. That was when I finally did it.
Okay. So the quote, I'm sure you've heard this before, and the day came when the risk to remain tight in a bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom, by Anais Nin. Does that resonate?
Yes. Yeah. And it's funny you mentioned that quote because I just saw that quote somewhere else a couple of days ago too.
Yeah. I think it sums it up perfectly, because that's what it's like when you're so used to, or maybe say comfortable even, living life, doing life one way, right? Or your profession, you're used to seeing it one way, and yet something else is calling you and it's not going away, and it doesn't get quieter. It just gets stronger and stronger and stronger. And finally it's like, okay, something's got to give. And it's no longer going to be this thing that isn't quite a fit anymore. Maybe it made sense for the time, but it doesn't anymore.
Yes.
So, wow. Well, so did you know at that time, when you realized that it was time to make a change, did you know that coaching was the direction you were going to move in?
I didn't initially. What happened is so I moved across the country. So I'm living in Idaho now, and I moved back out here in late 2014. Before that, I had been living in New Jersey for 10 years. And so at the time that I moved, I told everybody else that the main reason I was moving was to be closer to my family, which was true because now I live near where I grew up. Okay. But the other part of that, which was maybe even almost the bigger piece that I still didn't reveal to anyone at the time, is that I wasn't in love with my job anymore. And so I wasn't only moving to be closer to my family, I was moving to escape essentially that life.
Wow. So how did you find your way to coaching?
So what ended up happening is that when I moved, I voluntarily stepped down from my position. I was in a higher level leadership role, and I stayed on with the company doing consulting work for projects that I had been a key stakeholder in prior to that. And so when I moved out here, I was doing consulting work for a little while, and the call to change and the work environment was quite toxic. And so, there was every reason, pushing me kind of out the door, but I refused to go. And then I thought about coaching one day because even when I was a little girl, I wanted to be a teacher. Okay. And in my career, I worked in retail for over 23 years, but in my career, I got to do an element of that, because I was in a leadership role. So I got to do the coaching and the mentoring and the training and developing and what I love to do, which was to help other people be, successful, their version of success, whatever that means for them. And what I realized in retrospect is that I was dating my purpose, right? Because that's what kept me
in that
career for so long.
Okay.
So coaching just kind of popped into my mind one day. I started thinking about, I've thought about having my own business and what could I do? And yeah, coaching seems perfect. And then I was on the search for I wanted a training program because although, I was experienced in helping people in that way, I wanted to put more of the structures in place. And so I had searched for a training program for a while, but hadn't had any luck really finding the right one because I wanted something that was spiritually based, Okay. And then lo and behold, one day I got an email. From somebody that was partnering with Christy Whitman, and I wasn't even on her email list. That's just how the universe works.
Yep.
And as soon as I saw it, I knew that was the one, and pretty much the rest is history. I started the coaching program, the QSCA, when I was still working for my other company and transitioned out, and I ended up leaving about a year later, probably right around the time that I finished the certification.
Awesome. Wow. I love that. Okay. So let's take a quick look at our live viewers here. I see Rhonda is saying hello. So hello, Rhonda. Good to see you here.
Hi.
And Joe Ellen, I love it. You gave me some really nice compliments. So thank you. I appreciate that. And yes, Jennifer, I love her story. Joellen is also saying we all too often stay somewhere and then big issues arise and really asks us to make a change.
Absolutely. And it's nice to meet you, Joellen.
Oh my goodness. So, okay. So about a year after you started the program, you transitioned. And what was that like for you? I mean, did you immediately have a bunch of clients coming in, or was it a few at a time, or how was that transition like for you?
Yeah. So I can tell you a lot about what I would say not to do.
Hey, go for it.
Okay, I'll just put it all out there. So in the beginning, right, I was way too wrapped up in all the shiny stuff, all the webinars, getting your website up, and
Keep going. Yes.
right,
I think
all of
you're
that stuff.
yeah.
So that being said, I spent the first couple months working on that when, what I should have been doing was spending more time connecting, right? But you don't know what you don't know sometimes, and sometimes we got to learn the hard way. That being said, I did have some success out of the gate, but then after a few months, I don't want to say like I went through a dry spell, but like things kind of died down. And what happened is that I was actually out of alignment with who I was serving. So this, I'll tell you this part of the story. So what happened, right, is that out of the gate, I was serving women who were essentially me. Okay. The reason why I chose to do that was because when I was going through my own transition, I was super passionate about helping other people to know that they weren't trapped where they were at, and that they had support and everything. But what I wasn't doing in the beginning was allowing the intuitive side of myself, the spiritual side of myself, to come out as much in my work. For lack of a better way to put it, I would say that I was still too corporate-y.
Okay.
Right? I mean, that's really the only way I can describe it. There was a fear. I had a fear of allowing myself to fully be
in the
out
flow
there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I figured out what was happening essentially. And as soon as I started making more self-honoring decisions, about showing up authentically and really allowing not just part of myself to be seen, but all of myself, things started taking off.
Wow. So what did that change look like for you when you started to allow yourself to be more of you, be more authentic? What did that mean for you?
I started attracting. Go ahead.
Well, was it just how you coached in the moment with a client, or was it more about how you were marketing, or I don't know, is anything coming on?
It was really all of it. All of it kind of came together. So as soon as I started showing up 100%, more authentically in my marketing, then I also started attracting clients that were more aligned with me as well.
Okay.
If that makes sense. I don't know if sometimes you talk to certain people, you're not as in alignment as. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah, it does. And I love it. Joellen is also saying she gets it. Totally get it. And doesn't that sound familiar? Yeah, right. Isn't this so good? I'm just going to go back a little bit here too to Rhonda's comment, because she's highlighting something I loved. I loved when you said you were dating your purpose. Great way to put that. Yeah, that struck a chord with me too, Rhonda. Okay, so now, do you recall, were there any beliefs that you had to shift within yourself to be able to, be more authentic in your marketing?
Yes, I had to. One of the biggest things. So I'm a recovering people pleaser.
I love that.
So one of the biggest things was to push past was the fear of what other people would think about me. The fear of what my family would think about me, the fear of what, people that I used to work with in the professional world would think about me. So that was one of the biggest things to push through.
Okay.
And I just got to the point where I, asked myself the question, what's more important to me? Getting my message out there and making an impact and helping other people, or what other people think about what I'm doing, right? Like, not everybody likes the same flavor of Kool-Aid.
Yeah, right. Well, okay, so now since you've done that and made that transition and stepped more into what you're doing today, to the transformational coaching, spiritual mentor, have you received any responses from those people who knew you before? So in your professional life or family or whoever it was, all those people that you were fearing before, have you received any responses or reactions from them that actually surprise you?
Yeah, so I don't know if I would say I was surprised, but any reactions that I have received have been positive.
So so what was that like when you had all this fear about, oh no, what are they going to think? And then the reactions you end up getting are actually positive. Like, tell us more about that.
Right. Yeah. I was kind of talking to myself or thinking to myself, really? Like, why were you making such a big deal about all this?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Joellen is saying that is so powerful. Yep. Me too. I'm always concerned still about those in the corporate world I used to work with, seeing what I do now. Yeah. You're yeah. So anybody identifying with is not alone. I love your story, Jennifer, because I think so many of us can identify with it. Whether you're a coach, whether you're a spiritual coach, whether you're just anybody doing one thing and then deciding to do something that might appear to be in total contrast to that first thing, it takes a lot of courage. And looking at that specifically, courage, was there anything new you learned about yourself in terms of, this experience and, growing more courage, if that really makes sense?
Wow. I mean, I've learned so much, but from the scenario that we just talked about, learning not to make assumptions, learning not to make judgments, learning how judgmental I was.
Isn't that interesting too? Because I love that you actually just said that, because we can call it, being afraid of what other people think of us, which it was that. And then also acknowledge that was also, in a way, a judgment. Like, yeah. all these things, I think really anything that we look at as a fear or anxiety in some way, we could also just say is a judgment. Could also be because, okay, I'm now like going a little deeper here. Like, any belief we make about something, we could essentially call in some form as a judgment, right? If you
It is. Yes, it absolutely is. It so is, and a lot of the work that I've done on myself and a lot of the work that I help other people with is around those limiting beliefs. I mean, that's what holds us back. It's all these limiting beliefs. Fears, obviously the main star of the show, but
yeah. Right? Yeah. Oh, that's
here
great.
I
am. Okay, so tell us a little bit more about the work that you do today. You work with women, but then specifically, I know you touched on it a little bit earlier, but who are your ideal clients or the typical clients that you work with?
Yep. So a lot of the clients that I work with are women, and they're in corporate, and they're either looking to change their career or to start their own business. Okay. But it's someone who has been feeling that call to change, but has been ignoring it, has been in denial to an extent, or they might even be ready to move forward. And a lot of them, by the time they come to me, they're ready to move forward. But where they need the help is, they can't see how to get from where they're at today to where they want to be. And every time they do, they get overwhelmed, and then fear takes over, and then they do nothing, right? Because it just feels so monumental, right, making a change like that. And so Sometimes even when they come to me, they're in between jobs too.
Okay. And so what do you find? I mean, it sounds obvious, like limiting beliefs and fear are probably big factors into all of that. What makes that hard, right? Gets in the way. Is there anything else that you see as a common theme or pattern with these people that's getting in their way? There might not be, but is there anything else that you think shows up and you wish people, I don't know, is anything coming up? I'm fumbling right now.
I'll just tell you all of it.
Yeah.
Right. So the limiting beliefs, the fear is always a factor, and there is always deeper work that has to be done around getting to the root cause of that. And what I mean by that is a lot of they're patterns, and they come from somewhere. They start somewhere, and it's usually either with a trauma that's happened to us or something that we picked up when we were much younger, because when we're children, we're very impressionable and we experience a lot of firsts. And so, for example, the first time that you might have felt fear around doing something that you haven't done before, right? It's like your brain registers that and says, okay, this event happened, you feel this way. And so now every time a scenario like this comes up, this is how it's going to play out. And so it's getting to the root of those limiting beliefs. That's always a factor in pretty much everybody that I work with and talk to. And the other part is that they are chronic people pleasers and overachievers. So they're not making space for themselves to connect with themselves also, which is one of the reasons why they feel confused, because they're not making time to be with themselves. They're looking outside themselves for answers, and they're not looking in the place where all the answers are, so that's part of it too. And there's an element of not feeling good enough, not feeling worthy enough to put themselves first, and understanding that in putting themselves first, they're actually then able to give back more to other people, because they're coming from a place of flow and from a full cup, and not, feeling depleted and obligated. And
if you could go back to your former self before you made this transition to where you are today, what would you tell the previous Jennifer Spor?
Don't worry. Don't be afraid. You're making a big deal out of what other people are going to think. The top thing I would say is, you're supported.
Tell us more about that. For someone who's not realizing how supported they are, what does that mean when you think of you are supported?
So at the time that I was going through those changes, I felt lonely. I felt like there just wasn't anyone in my life that understood, because a lot of people in my life did say at the time, well, I love you, but yeah, it's kind of crazy. Like, you have this 6-figure job and you've been in this career, all this time, why are you leaving? So I just didn't feel understood at the time. I didn't know that there were coaches out there or people out there that could provide, the right level of support. I'd go get a reading here and there, whatever, but that wasn't what I needed. So I would say you're supported, and that's my why. That's why I do what I do.
What fills up your cup so that you can be in that space of flow?
Wow. In terms of what I do for myself for self-care, or?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So meditation, if I had to pick one thing, out of all the practices that are out there, meditation would be the one thing. I teach that to everybody I work with. It was life-changing for me when I first started doing meditation, I used to be on 2 medications for anxiety. Like I was such a high strung stress ball all the time,
Wow.
scared, nervous, stressed. And after a period of time of doing that, I was able to walk away from it completely.
Wow.
I was so much more centered and focused. And today, even meditation's a part of who I am. Yeah, right, Rhonda. It's just part of who I am. I just never not do it. So meditation, journaling sometimes. I love doing affirmations. Actually, tapping is hugely effective for me too.
Okay. Was there, let me just, on a personal, I'm curious because this has come up recently. Was there ever a time that you didn't like tapping?
What I didn't like about tapping, well, there were 2 things initially. One is that, remembering like all the places to tap. But and then the other piece was that I felt like it was time consuming, but it was only time consuming because I was creating resistance to healing from whatever it was. So
got it. Okay. Yeah, no, I you know what? It seems like tapping is having not that it's ever not been popular as far as I'm aware, but I feel like there's been a resurgence of its popularity and people really identifying with how helpful it can be. And I agree with that. So I love that you shared that.
Actually, I thought of one other thing I wanted to mention, which is, I've also found mirror work to be very powerful.
Okay.
So
sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. When I first started doing affirmations, feel into it, feel as if, and all of that. And I thought I was on a good track, right? Which I was. But then when I started doing mirror work, I discovered a whole other layer of not feeling good enough that I needed to work. I mean, it just is so powerful, saying something, but looking at yourself, embracing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I just found it to be so powerful.
I love that you said that. That's awesome. If you were watching and you have also done mirror work, feel free to share with us too what your experience has been. Because I can recall the first time I ever did that. It was actually really hard to do, like to say anything to myself in the mirror, let alone something really nice, right? That was just like, that was
it felt uncomfortable. Yeah.
Very uncomfortable. Yes. Yeah. But that's great that you acknowledged it, because that it took things to another, there was another layer to uncover, to release, to heal. I love it. Well, tell us a little bit more about, you're an transformational intuitive coach. Will you share with us a little bit more about the intuitive part of what you do?
Yes. So I have a combination of different modalities that I use in healing and helping people. The intuitive part comes into play. So I'll just tell you what I do. So typically before a session, I spend time tuning into the client's energy and sending them distance healing, Reiki healing. And during that time, I receive downloads for them, intuitive insights, and it's always whatever it is for their highest good. Okay. So then when I get on the phone with the client, I pass along those intuitive insights to them. And then I also receive, intuitive guidance throughout our session. So I do some channeling. I'm also clairvoyant, so I see a lot of things, and so I share what I'm receiving as we're doing the work, going through the coaching session.
Wow. Okay. Now, is that something that you had already developed prior to ever starting coaching, or did that come later after you started coaching?
Yeah, so it's ongoing. I mean, I would say that, so I've always had gifts ever since I can remember, but I didn't start really taking an interest in that development until about 10 years ago.
Okay.
And then just over time through various trainings and every day I have a practice that I do to essentially work those muscles,
Okay.
to keep them kind of feeling sharp and clear.
Will you share with us what that is in case there's anyone here that wants to enhance
what
their
my
own?
practice is? Yeah. So trying to think of how best to explain this. So yeah, it is like a muscle, like anything else is. And one thing that I have struggled with too, and I know this will resonate for a lot of people, is so there's a difference between getting answers for someone else and getting answers for yourself. Okay. So it's about establishing how you would typically connect with source, or however it is that someone connects with their higher guidance, making that connection and then recognizing the ways with which you normally receive information. So what your strongest gifts are, and then focusing on those gifts every day, asking yourself questions, seeing how the information comes in is really how it works.
So do you mean, go ahead.
No, that's hard to put into words, actually.
That's okay. No, but I love how you said how the information comes in. So you mentioned earlier that you're clairvoyant. So I imagine information coming in, how you see it in your mind's eye versus maybe say information coming in through a physical sensation or through, is that?
Correct. Yes. Yeah. So seeing, for example, if I asked myself an obvious question, like, is the sky blue? What I would see in my mind as an answer to that question is a yes in all capital letters with an exclamation point on the end, right?
I love it. Yes. Okay.
Same thing with no. I would see no. And then so those I know are clear answers. So if I'm asking a question for myself and there's a block, so what happens, right, is we can ask ourselves questions, but we can get inaccurate answers if we have a block around it. So because we're attached. So if I ask myself a question and it's a yes, no answer, and it might kind of be like a no, then a yes, or I might see a faint yes, it means that there's a block around it. And so I know there's an attachment and I need to work on that.
So what do you, so you work on releasing the attachment to receiving an answer?
Yep, I work on releasing the attachment. So I practice seeing the answers. And then I also feel, I'm clairsentient too. So I also feel a lot of things. And so I know that I get chills or goosebumps when I'm supposed to pay attention to something, or that I'm getting validation on something. And so every day after my meditation, I'll continue to sit there, lie there, and I'll ask myself a few questions to practice.
Okay.
In terms of how I'm receiving information.
Okay. I love that you shared that. So thank you for elaborating on that. Because I think a lot of people, especially coaches, but also, other spiritual coaches or holistic coaches, things of that nature, are either in the process or maybe learning, more about what's going on with themselves. So that just hearing how it works for you is helpful. So thank you. Go ahead.
No, I say it was hard to try to put that into words. So I hope it made sense.
I think you did. Yeah. If you're watching us, feel free to let us know if that made sense to you. I want to go ahead and acknowledge we've got a question here. Rhonda is asking, are there any resources that you recommend for where you found the mirror work information? And I just know immediately for me, I go to Louise Hay because she talks about mirror work. Is there anything else for you?
That's who popped into my mind as well.
Okay.
Louise Hay. And that's who I initially connected with in that area too. Okay.
So Rhonda, look up Louise Hay mirror work, and that's where you can find it. Just going back here too, she was totally loving the whole limiting beliefs are judgments part. So Yeah, I agree. That was really good. Is there anything that you would like to share with the audience today about, more about the work that you're doing, or anything new that's coming up for you that you would like to share with the audience?
Anything new? Well, I mean, I can't really I am working on launching a group program in the next couple of months, but I don't have, a date or any more information at this point. But I am super excited about that. And I am actually getting ready to post about a free training next Friday that is going to be centered around putting ourselves first and self-love and self-worth. So that will be coming out in the next day, Sunday actually will be the first post for that.
Okay. And so if you're watching this, we are talking about, today is September 19th, 2018. So just be aware that would be a week after this date. And so Jennifer, where can people find out more about you online to find out more about your class and your program?
Yeah, so I have a website, jenniferspor.com, but the best place to go for current happenings would be social media. So I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook, and Twitter and Instagram. But Facebook and LinkedIn would be the top two to find current information.
Okay, and I will just add that your website is beautiful.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, so if you go to her website, you might notice it's gorgeous. Are there any final thoughts you'd like to share with our audience today as we start to wrap up?
Just that whatever you're afraid to do is the exact thing that you need to do. And that you are so held and supported.
I love that. And isn't that so kind of like, it sounds like it could be backwards, right? Like, oh, if I'm afraid to do it, or there's some sort of resistance to it where we can start to rationalize that it doesn't make sense to do it, and yet also come to the conclusion of, oh, that's the exact thing I'm supposed to do to get past it and move forward. I love that. I think it depends on the individual too, in the situation, but I love that. So, and Rhonda Richard is saying, thank you for the info about Louise Hay. So awesome. Good to hear that was useful. And thank you for being here today, Jennifer. I really, you had shared something online, and of course I know neither of us can actually recall what it was at the moment. But you shared something that was super powerful online, and I was like, that's it. I want to talk to Jennifer. So thank you for responding and agreeing to be on my show today. And thank you for all those who are watching with us live or on the replay. I hope you remember that every day is always a new day. There is always hope. Wherever you are today does not have to be where you are tomorrow. And Jennifer's story is incredibly inspiring. I think so many of us can identify with that, feeling like a square peg in a round hole, and finding the courage within ourselves to take that leap, to step forward. And you may find a way that works for you. I love, Jennifer, how you shared that your transition was you stepped away and you started consulting. And then eventually it was time to move even beyond that and move into more of your coaching. So, things don't have to be so black and white, right? We can find a transition that works for us. So, and we're always supported. So true. I love that you shared that, Jennifer. Thank you for being here with us today. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. And that's our show. We'll see you next time. Oh,
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
To find out about more shows about Every Day is a New Day, you can go on Facebook, go to Kim O'Neill Coaching at Kim O'Neill Coaching, or go to KimO'NeillCoaching.com. You can find out all the future different shows. Oh my gosh, I'm totally jumbling my words at this point. Anyway, there's more. So check them out. Go to Facebook at Kim O'Neill Coaching. Thank you for being here. And we're going to go for now, for real.
Okay.
Okay. Bye, everybody.